What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. You've been seeing a lot of us at this point. This is our fourth upload in 4 days. We're going to get a fifth one tomorrow, as we'll talk about in just a little bit. But if you did not hear already and you did not see already, we have rebranded to Salty Runback NA. This is our second part of our 2-episode per week schedule. The headlines that we normally do, that was released on Tuesday. This is going to be the more free-form episode that you'll get right before the games start for the weekend. So excited to get that underway, as we have a fun little thing to talk about today. My name is Grapes, joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, welcome back. Good to see you. How are you doing today?
Grapes, I'm doing all right because Salty Runback, we're trying to take over the world, you know? No, I'm kidding, but
taking over your screens, at least. There's a lot of uploads we've been having.
It's true. We're trying to take over the NA League Esports world, perhaps. No, but it's been a lot of fun. It's given me something to do on what would otherwise have probably been a boring week. So I've enjoyed it a lot. And if you need to spice up your week, again, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel because, like Grapes has alluded to, we're going to be uploading a lot more. And be sure to check out our Patreon link in the description at Salty Runback NA if you want to support us over there. First Patreon exclusive content is going to be coming out this Friday. This one will not be exclusive. It's going to be CLOL office hours with Grapes. Professor Grapes is going to walk you through everything you need to know about CLOL. The first one will be published live here on the YouTube channel, but if you like what you see, maybe head over onto the Patreon and help us out. But regardless, we got a lot of good stuff well, actually, I say we have a lot of good stuff to talk about. Not really much happened in the last 2 days since we last talked, but it is still the start of the season, meaning we have things to go over.
I know we were alluding to it like in the headlines episode a couple days ago, but we were hoping and praying to get some sort of news so we could talk about it on this Thursday episode.
Specifically an OQ announcement.
Yeah, I feel like I am just a crazy person sitting in a blank room just waiting for this OQ thing to come. Like, surely today will be the day. Surely today will be the day. Wait another day, and it just doesn't happen. One day we'll figure out what's happening with this OQ. They alluded to it. They got us super excited in that announcement a couple months ago, and then Riot has gone dark basically since. So we will let you know when we know that there's more news. Right now we don't really know much.
Surely one day we'll get news about the OQ. Did you see Sneeze's tweet? Like, was it this morning where he just was suddenly like, "Oh my God, OQ is this weekend"?
I am not gonna lie, that got me for about half a second.
I thought that was such a good tweet.
Did I miss something? Oh shit,
that was so funny.
No, incredible bait by Sneezes. Shout out
Sneezes, friend of the show.
So not much else to go over other than, LTA is starting this Saturday, as well as CLOL. If you want to learn more about CLOL, obviously, once again, check this YouTube channel for all of that. We're going to be talking about all of the potential teams that could make that big run to the Natty in the end of the year. So that'll be tomorrow. We're going to focus on today. And Hawk, what we do know about the developmental landscape for next year is that it's going to look a little bit different. There is now that direct pipeline into the Tier 1 ecosystem through the LTA. The NACL winner and runner-ups, they'll be in that promotion tournament. And there will also be that Tier 3 open OQ, a little bit more open. So a lot of things have changed, which means it is time to say goodbye to a format that we have been familiar with for many, many years at this point. Whether it was the Proving Ground circuit or the NACL, I feel like we can kind of group those two together. Things are going to look a little bit different. And so what we're going to do today is have the new teams that have been announced so far. There are not a ton of them. We're going to be comparing them to their predecessors, their role models, teams that are from this past era that remind us of the new rosters that are on the horizon, and see what these rosters could learn from some of our favorite squads in NA amateur history.
Yeah, it feels like 2021 was sort of the year that amateur really got put on the map in terms of the Proving Ground circuit. Now we're just continuing to iterate on that format. I feel like in some way, Grapes, the open NACL qualifier feels closer to what 2021 Proving Grounds was. Not because obviously there was not a direct link to Academy back then, but I'm just thinking like in terms of like the bigger qualifier tournament that might have like a different format than we're used to. I don't know. But regardless,
there's something there. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and at the end of the day, it really is just, we want to look at the rosters that we have now and compare them to what we had before. Like you said, there's not a lot. We've got 3 NACL teams and then I think 5 qualifier teams so far, and then a whole lot of rumors, but we're not trying to leak anything here. So,
and what that means is that there's not a ton of rosters that have been announced. So if you're an OQ team or an NACL team, Supernova, Winthrop, CCG, and you want to announce your roster in the next week, you'll be the main focus of our show because there's really not a lot of news to go around at this point.
Yeah, if anyone announces their roster, they will be talked about. So highly recommend that. If you are a former NACL player, and I mean, I know we talked about this on our episode on Tuesday. If you're a former NACL player, get your butt into fucking OQs if you're not playing on an NACL team, man, because you can qualify, and I want to watch you play. Make this qualifier the most stacked one we've had in years. But regardless, Graves, let's take the teams that we do have. Let's take maybe a look down memory lane, but also set some expectations for what we think these teams can achieve in 2025.
Absolutely. So we're going to go through NACL first, Open Qualifier second. We're going to compare them to a OQ or Tier 3 or Tier 2 team that competed in a split between spring 2021 and summer 2024 and talk about why we think they're similar. Also give you a little bit of context in case you are new to this space as well, because this is kind of the entire era that Hawk and I have been covering NA Amateur for. So this is a fun chance for us, also a fun chance maybe for you to learn about some of these teams. So
and maybe let us know in the comments if you've got like some crazy amateur pool from like 2019, like some Gold Coin United type shit like that. Would love to hear about it in the comments, but regardless.
All right, well, let's kick it off. We'll start with our NACL organizations. We're going to go first towards, I think, the biggest name in terms of what we're expecting to be pretty fun with Luminosity. They are a new organization competing in the NACL. They've made it their explicit goal to promote into the LTA. What does this team remind you of, Hawk?
Well, Grapes, it reminds me of a lot of things. Specifically, Fake God, Insanity, and what the?
We're also learning a new presentation software as well, by the way.
We're using Canva, not Google Slides. It reminds me of a lot of things, Grapes. Both the old era, like I so expertly went back to, but also disguised 2023 summer, a team that had the express goal of maybe not promoting into the LCS at the time because there was not a direct pipeline, but most certainly winning the NACL, which they were able to do. And with 3 of the 5 players that we see on this Luminosity team, and crazily enough, I know this roster obviously did not promote into the LTA, but the organization did. So there is definitely some through lines there.
Yeah, that was the comparison that we made in terms of where we, watched this disguised roster form. We saw the roster that came out. We're like, oh, this is a lot of the same pieces as we've seen before. Fake God, Tomio, and Zazel, because they were obviously on 2023 Spring C9 challengers that ended up winning the split. They won the split as well, and 2 years later find themselves in the LCS or LTA. Now if we look at this Luminosity team going into NACL, we say, oh, wow, look at those group of core players that we saw win the split just a couple of splits ago. Fake God, Tomio, and Zazel. Now they're paired alongside some different players, obviously, but this core has a insanely good track record at performance in the Tier 2 ecosystem at the very least.
Yeah, I know people are going to have their opinions about how Tomio and Fake God specifically have played at the Tier 1 level, but guys, there is absolutely no denying that these 2 players have been some of the best in their roles at Tier 2 every time they've played here. And then Zazel has had, the performances at Tier 1, maybe not for a while, but I mean, the man's made it further at the World Championship than anybody in North American history. and we expect them to be good. Grapes, I do think what's interesting, looking at these two rosters, the similarities are obvious, and I think the expectations for Luminosity, honestly, maybe even higher than what they were for Disguised. And the reason I say that is because back in the day, I will say, more so thinking of 2023 Spring Disguised, but Young and Meech, I think, were sort of considered like the risks for that team back in the day, as opposed to Insanity and Tactical, who are both now coming back down from, honestly, like pretty decent showings in the LCS for both of them.
Right. Young coming from Golden Guardians in 23 Spring, Meech coming from CLG Challengers in 2023 Spring. They were both very exciting players, but neither of them had the pegygree as Insanity or Tactical. So when they were the pieces that had to replace Lost and MNS/Diplex, they have definitely more of a risk, and we definitely talked about that.
MNS/Diplex was not on DSG, bro.
No, but this is DSG's first ever split in the NACL, because in 2023 Spring, Fake, Tomio, and Zazel were all on Cloud9 Challengers. And
I see. That does. I'm really smart.
We went over this like
we did. I know. Fine.
Either way, I mean,
the point is,
to say, still they
the
were.
The point
risks.
is, Young and Meech did not have
the
pedigree that Insanity and Tactical do now.
Yes, and that is why this Luminosity team, the difference between these two comparisons is that this might even be a more insane roster than Disguised, and they have a very specific intent. It is to promote into the LTA. Obviously, they're gonna have the whole spring split to kind of get acquainted with each other, because the summer split is the split that really matters in terms of getting that placement to get into the promotion tournament. But I'm very excited to watch this team play.
Yeah.
This was the simplest of the comparisons here. We're gonna have to walk you through some of the other ones maybe a little bit more, so we can move on.
Yeah, it's really easy to pull out a roster that just had 3 of the 5 same players. I do again just want to emphasize though that trophy peeking out from behind that Disguise banner. I think Luminosity definitely in the hunt for that one, but not everybody else, unfortunately, gonna be in the hunt for trophies. However, Dragonsteel may be one of them, because this is the other team that we've looked at as sort of being the other favorite. I think, Grapes, I'm actually trying to remember. We talked about this in an episode recently. Was it me that said Dragonsteel is the favorite? Or was it you? I think it was me.
I think it was you. Yeah.
I think it was me. And yeah. But regardless, these are probably going to be the 2 best teams in the NACL. Dragonsteel, Luminosity, reigning champions, Zamudo, UG Spyrax, Sajed, and Zyko. Only 1 change from their previous roster. Oh, and by the way, if you were worried at all about their mid-jungle, which I don't know why you would be, they've been the best in Academy/NACL for 3 years now. They have Shimmer and Toasty. So Dragonsteel looking pretty fucking stacked, Grapes.
Not a bad backup to have in either position, I will say. The team that we compared them to, though, we're going to take you back to 2022 and Team Liquid Academy. It says Challengers. It should be Academy because the NACL did not exist back then. Bradley, Armeo, Harry, Jan, and Ayla. The big thing that is similar between these two teams is that they are running back a good portion of the roster that did very, very good in the previous split. In 2021 summer, Team Liquid Challengers won the Academy playoffs, but lost in Proving Grounds to 100 Thieves. I think it's easy to say that TL Challengers, they would have won if they had their full roster in 2021 because they had some players go on boot camp with Team Liquid during Worlds. That was that weird year where Academy lined up basically with Worlds at the end of the year, or Proving Grounds. So all that to say, very, very solid team going in. They replaced 1 player, that is Bradley, coming in to play the top lane, role swapping up there. And they ended up, of course, winning the split, and then ended up winning the split after that. So that's pretty good signs if you are a Dragonsteel fan.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. Maybe sort of like Dragonsteel 2 fumbling the bag at America's Challengers a little bit after being the dominant team for the split. I think even to drive the comparison deeper too, I look at players like Harry and Ayla and Jan during this time. People were sort of like 2022 was the year that people were like, yo, these guys should be in LCS 2023, right? And sort of looking at Dragonsteel 2025, you've got, I think, Zyko and Sajed in particular, and maybe even Zamudo, I wonder if that'll be the conversation surrounding these players for this coming year. We've already seen Scary Jerry also get to promote up. So I think that sort of through line of like who the hype prospects are on the team, it even still exists for this team as well.
Yeah, and they got that one new roster change coming in. For TL, it was Bradley,
and it's a bombshell roster change.
Yeah, a big bombshell, I should say. Bradley replacing Jenkins, who I think went on to play for CLG's LCS team for the spring split. And then for Dragonsteel, it's the Jed coming in to replace Scary Jerry, who went on to play for Disguised. By the way, did you see the Maryville video that they thanked
I
Scary
did.
Jerry?
I haven't watched the video, but I saw that it got posted and it made me happy.
It's really good. A lot of the players come in and the Scary Jerry's parents come in and say thank. If you haven't watched that, go check it out on their socials and everything like that. Regardless, Sajed coming in as a hyped up AD carry to join this Dragonsteel roster. I feel like it's very similar to Bradley joining TL back in the day, and they ended up doing very well as a 5-core.
Yeah. So Dragonsteel, if we have a lesson maybe for them to take away, guys, just win the split.
Just be really good and have 3 of 5 players promoted into the LCS the next year.
Right. Yeah. Screw promoting players. Just promote the whole damn team.
Actually true.
5-head. I mean, it kind of worked for Team Liquid. I mean, all of these players except for Bradley made it to the LCS within a year of this roster. So
I already know we're going to get in the promotion tournament a Jerry versus Dragonsteel match that is going to have such huge implications. The broadcast better be
and of course it's Sajed versus Jerry, who were the rivalry this year, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Hearts are gonna be broken.
Yeah.
If the tournament's in person and then they do the handshakes at the end, I don't know.
Dude, there's gonna be some hugs and shit, man.
Oh man, yeah.
All
right. Well, that's the 2 contenders. Let's talk about another team that we are excited for and could be maybe sleepers in the NACL for 2025. That is Blue Otter, who are fully running it back. Quacker, Music, Samikin, Levitate, and Rovex's team was so exciting to watch all summer long, all spring long as well, when they had a bit of a different core. There was a lot of different options we could have had. I don't think we had a clear, direct comparison, Hawk, but there was one that I think we both felt pretty good about.
Grapes, I do have to say, it's not often we get to say this on the show, but we have a full Salty Runback year over year for Blue Otter coming into 2025. Shout out to them. Also, a lot of friends of the show on the team. And we're comparing them to AoE Esports 2023, another team that promoted in to the league. Now, admittedly for them, they sort of bought their spot for 2023 spring, but the 2023 spring roster was able to successfully defend their spot with a team that in 2022 summer was extremely similar. 3 out of 5 of the same players, Winnie, Link, Skytech. It was sort of that same core. I think even Darkwings and Young, you could say I think similar talent levels. It's relatively fair to say Young may be a little bit stronger, at least was considered at the time. But and then weak side top laners. You've got the Quacker crossover right here too. But that 2022 summer AoE Esports team into 2023 spring, I think would have promoted had promotion existed, right? So it's sort of similar to Blue Otter defending their spot last summer.
Would they have promoted? It would have been close.
I mean, that was a good team, dude. They
were the one team.
They beat TSM Academy.
They didn't win any of the tournaments though in the OQ because
that is true. They were
Taco and then
didn't they come top 4 in all 4 OQs of 2022?
The thing you have to remember about 2022 is that all the teams were so stacked. 100 Thieves Next were in there.
But who would have knocked them off?
That's actually the team that Darkwings was on.
The top 4 for 2022 summer was 100 Next, Taco, AoE, and Ginger Turmeric ended up being the top 4.
So yeah, but Fear also I think kind of snuck in there as well. I don't remember what exactly
they were not. They were not on the same level though. They weren't.
They had some bangers against
they went to finals.
Cloud9 Academy. They had a crazy proving grounds run, I will say.
You're right.
All that they were. I remember
the point
it was a big deal.
They were
it was a
really
big deal
successful.
Because it was a big deal in 2022 summer when Ginger Turmeric beat AoE main. Do you remember that? It was I think that was the series. It was a civil war, and Ginger Turmeric.
I thought AoE won the civil war, and it was just Ginger Turmeric and proving grounds. Am I crazy?
I will double check, but I'm pretty sure.
I thought they met in quarterfinals and main beat them. Or was that maybe that was Summer 1, and then AoE
Yeah.
main lost the Civil War in Summer 2?
Man, this is so fun. Taking all these.
Yeah,
trips
let's fucking
down
look at it.
memory
We're already
lane.
20 minutes into the episode, but
Oh no, you are correct. You are
I
correct.
knew
Main
it.
B,
Because
main
Turmeric
BTT.
came out of they came off the top rope and
Yeah.
like no one thought they'd be good because they were like a top 8 team. And I mean, again, back in 2022, like that team was crazy, right? But
Yeah.
they were like a top 8 team, and then they made top 6 at the whole Proving Grounds tournament.
That's not true. They finished 9.
Are you sure?
Oh, Ginger Turmeric did. Ginger
Yeah,
Turmeric did,
that's what I thought.
Sorry,
I know.
I'm looking at the Leaguepedia page of the
Grapes,
main team, and
you
I'm
may
like,
have beaten me at the fucking Immaculate Grid, but I know my shit for 2022
yeah,
summer.
yeah,
Don't
you know
step
ball,
to
you know
me, all
ball.
right?
No, okay. Regardless, we go back to this comparison in 2023 after that brief tangent.
Let's
from
just
summer.
compare AoE teams to each other.
This episode's gonna be like 3 hours long at this point, by the way.
This is what happens when you get put on a history episode.
Yeah. 3 out of 5 players returning is not the same as a full Salty Runback. However, there really aren't any cases of a Salty Runback happening like between splits other than
It
like
seriously
academy
never
teams.
happens. It seriously
In a
never
tier
happens.
3 organization, almost never happens, which is why we thought this was very similar. And the other similarity I had between these two teams is they both played absolute bangers like in the moments that mattered most. The Blue Otter playoff run last split, when they played like that 5-game series against Supernova, they played like another 5-game series, the 5-game series here, 5-game series there.
The one
versus
against
AoE.
Disguised. That one was, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one too. And then the best series, like one of the best series I've ever watched, AoE versus Maryville in the 23 spring promotion.
For a
tournament.
spot.
For a spot. in
For a
promotion.
spot.
That was one of the most hyped up things I've ever seen. I remember at the end, Winnie posted a video of himself like screaming how hyped up he was. He went over to SkyTech in the room next to him, and they were like both like cheering, saying, "Yeah, Maryville, you guys suck." Bit of a potential, like
May have stoked the flame.
Yeah.
That was a very different Maryville team, though.
Yeah, and 2 years later, it was Winnie and SkyTech back beating
Dude,
Maryville team as well.
I think winning against Maryville is like some of the most classic shit like imaginable. Oh my! We're not even talking about Blue Otter, dude. Like, let's talk about some of
Regardless,
the.
like this was a good middle of the pack team. I'm expecting Blue Otter to do so as well. Hopefully, we see bigger strides from them in the spring split, as I know that is something that they have on their minds as well.
I'm even looking at like some of the player comparisons too. You have a lot of like on Blue Otter's side, a lot of now sophomore players. Like, I mean, actually for like more than half the team, most of them had not played in the NACL before, or even in the case of like Quacker Music and Rovex, like okay, they all had one split kind of that like was pretty shit for all of them, right? So like I feel like for most of Blue Otter, it's fair to say that they're all sophomore players. And looking at AoE, like Dark Wings had a stint in 2022, and then as did SkyTech. So like, still some like sophomore players there. So I even think in terms of like where the players were at in their development arcs is kind of similar. But what I will say, Grapes, I think there's more hype surrounding this 2025 Blue Otter team, regardless of the run back. I just think looking at the names on this team, Winnie, Darkwings, Link, SkyTech, we thought that team would be solid and they'd be good. But I think I look at a guy like Samikin and I'm like, that is an LTA prospect. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I you could make the argument for some of these guys being like LCS prospects, but I think more definitively it's this core of like Samikin and Levitate.
Yeah.
The carries for Blue Otter definitely could make it there one day. So that is the difference between these two teams. That is where Blue Otter could maybe improve on from 23 AoE spring.
I think if we had to give them something to learn from, it is because I remember this AoE team, right, Grapes? They were like the definition of mid, where they were always better than like the other provisional teams for the most part, and they like could play against anybody, but they didn't really like break into the upper echelon, missed playoffs, had to defend their spot. Whereas this Blue Otter team, I think where you can learn from AoE is be better than mid. We saw what they could do in the playoffs of this past NACL split. Now go and be a contender. Go keep growing, and that's what I'm excited to see from them.
Yeah. That's going to do it for our NACL teams. We'll move on to the OQ teams. Maybe we'll go through them a little bit faster just because there's a little bit more of them. This one, though, the big heavy hitter, Nightmare, the one that everybody expects to make it up there, a team that we said could potentially even be a contender for the NACL, let alone the OQ. Team coming in with 5 superstars, one of them being a Dokla. I think there's one Team Hawk that this reminds us of the most.
I'm gonna give everyone in the comments or whatever 5 seconds to go search your brain for an amateur team that this could possibly be, because I think this has to be the most obvious comparison that we have other than Disguise, because guys, who could it be other than 2021 Wildcard Red?
Yep.
I mean, this team, I think it's fair to say top 3 greatest amateur teams of all time, probably top 2. It's really them and No Org, I feel like, that kind of stand alone with that trophy. You have Bradley back in the mid lane. This is sort of where he made his name, was on Wildcard Red, as well as with Bethany Lutheran. You have Dokla returning. You have a bottom lane of mega veterans, the AD carries specifically having come out of the LCS/LTA. And then you have very experienced junglers. I will say Ken V, Winnie, differing play styles, although equally aggressive in the way that they go about things. I don't really think there's much else to say almost, because like, yeah, this is the expectation is the incarnation of Wildcard Red.
The Wildcard Red team, I think, had a little bit more like high highs and low lows in terms of experience levels. You had Arrow, who was like longtime veteran in Korea, won MVP in the LCS just like a couple years before this. And you also had somebody like Bradley and Daption, who were kind of playing on their first real contenders like ever. You know, Daption was on the Wildcard team in the spring split, but that team barely made Proving Grounds and didn't really have much of a showing. Bradley was never on a team that made Proving Grounds or made it to the top of that amateur echelon until this summer split, although obviously once he did get there, he was insane. The Nightmare team is just very balanced. It's 5 players. 3 of them have played on the LCS stage before, although none of them have gotten to the same high highs as somebody like Arrow. And then you have 2 NACL veterans at this point rounding out their roster.
All right, Grapes. If Prime Wildcard Red were to play Prime or like current Nightmare, who wins?
Oh man, so Bradley and Dokla are both on the team.
Bradley, so like you can assume maybe like solo lanes are equal, unless you think like 2021 Bradley was better than 2024 or like whatever. I wouldn't really say so, but so solo lanes maybe theoretically equal, but like I think the question is Arrow that much stronger than Meech, and then also is how much better than Winnie is Kenvi, right? Like that's kind of the question.
Well, this team was just literally like the Arrow 1v9 show, I feel like, basically. So
yeah,
that's not going to be how this Nightmare team runs. This team is going to be very
It's going to be topside focused.
You
got Dokla, Kenvi, Bradley, bro. They're going to fucking fist some guys.
I feel like, though, you could carry through all 3 roles, although that wasn't necessarily the case with Wildcard, especially when Brandini filled in after Dokla went to sub for Team Liquid Academy. So, that's the big difference that makes this Nightmare team maybe have the edge just a bit, is that they are less one-dimensional. Because
maybe
Arrow was the only player that like really was the defining carry factor on these teams. I will say though, Arrow was really good. I would give him the best player out of the 10 kind of on. Yeah,
Prime Arrow was definitely the best. I mean, Prime Dokla was also nuts, but we didn't really see that necessarily on Wildcard, or maybe we'll see it on Nightmare. I don't know. So I know on the last episode earlier this week, I said I think Nightmare won't drop a game, and I will say the reason I said that is because I do think the top side of this team in specific is such a pub stomper top side. Like, I think Dokla, Kenvi, and Bradley, whatever struggles they've had at the next level, you know, how many difficulties they've had breaking through, these 3 players are the kind of players that go absolutely sicko mode if they're against anyone that's even a little bit worse than them. So I am legitimately expecting to see like absolutely insane, like just gaps in the top side of the map. And that's why I think Nightmare won't drop a game. Even if they're not even like the best team. I think Dokla, Kenvi, and Bradley, like, bro, Hoarder, up and coming player, my man, he's got this, right? But like against Dokla, like get the fuck out of here, dude.
Dokla, who clapped Broken Blade in the top lane at Worlds.
You telling me I'm gonna see low jazz against Kenvi? Like I'm sorry, I just don't think it's gonna go well for my OQ boys. And you know I love them. Low jazz is my goat, but that's Kenvi right there, man. Like come on.
Yeah, these 3 have all been known as like the best player in tier 3 kind of at different times.
And like easily the best player.
Whether it was Dokla in 2021, Kenvi in 2020, or Bradley, I guess you could say like when he was on that CCG roster in 2024. Like
Bradley was
had their
was destroying everyone.
Yeah,
I mean.
exactly. So I'm really excited for this Nightmare team. But we can move on to some of the other OQ teams.
Hang on, really quick.
potentially.
I need to remind everyone. Last time Bradley played in Tier 3, which by the way was just like a year ago, he was almost the MVP, but he only played half of the split. That's how much better than everyone except for Shogo he was. So I just need to put that out there. Let's keep moving.
Let's move on to Respawn, another team that is a new organization and entering the open qualifier that ran through all their tryouts and things like that. They're running with a team with Lawrence on it and a couple of fun, new, exciting rookies/newer players, Hawk. This reminds us of somebody that may be a little bit more recent and also have some players that we have already talked about.
Yeah. Near and dear to our heart, a team we've already told the story of, 2024 Spring Blue Otter, the one that did promote into the NACL. This was the team with Lawrence, Music, Samikin, Lynx, and Rovex. Obviously, Lawrence moved on from the team after the spring split, both by their own volition for their own personal reasons, and we saw Quacker and Levitate come in. But, I mean, first of all, the elephant in the room is you have Lawrence and Lawrence on both the teams, but I think expectation here for Respawn is that they're a team of similar caliber. Another experienced sort of captain-style jungler. Shochi and Samikin, maybe some differences between the expectations around them, but Shochi, a very experienced vibes-style player, can kind of do anything, much like Rovex, perhaps. And then you have the exciting rookie. For Blue Otter, it was Samikin. For Respawn, it is Sushi.
Yeah, I feel like you can kind of switch the roles around a little bit. If you swap like the mid and ADs in both of these teams, you can get like Lynx and Shochi as like the NACL vets that are coming back here to, be a strong, solid player that will that'll play carry champions very well. And then you have the other carry that's a little bit newer, maybe has a little bit more variance, but I think has the potential to be a superstar. And potentially and
even like the way that they
tier
play,
2 into tier 1.
I've been so critical of Sushi's laning phase, but I think this kid's hands and team fights are insane. And you look at Samikin, and it's like, dude, I remember back in 2024 spring, I was like, yo, Samikin's team fighting's nuts and all, but like he's down 15 CS to sword every game, But then he luxed everybody in game 5 and decided to become prime showmaker, and now he's doing what he does. But yeah, man.
And we had similar concerns about Sushi when he was on Lotus last split as
well.
Right,
exactly.
Yeah. That's a very solid comparison. And I think the other one here is in comparison to where this roster sat in the tier 3 space in 24 spring. Blue Otter was considered either second, third, maybe fourth, fifth best team, kind of in that like top 5 range, but not necessarily first. However, they did prove themselves by winning the first OQ, and they proved themselves again by promoting into the NACL. So in terms of expectations for Respawn, they're not necessarily first because Nightmare is there, but they're very sure near the top and could absolutely go on a run to being one of the best teams and making their way into the NACL.
Yeah, definitely a contender. If they can learn anything from Blue Otter Grapes, never give up. I feel like this Blue Otter team had such a dog mentality, and I think these Respawn players, I can see something very similar coming out from them. You know what I mean?
Well, remember, they like almost didn't win the OQ because they were eliminated in the
exactly.
quarterfinals.
I mean, they would not have made the promotion tournament if like the Morningstar White shit hadn't happened. And I mean, because you say they proved themselves by winning the OQ, I'm going to be honest with you. I think that was like, everyone kind of took that as a fluke. Like, it was hype as fuck. That best of 5 against Winthrop was awesome. Don't get me wrong. But like, I do think going into the promotion tournament, everyone's like, and Blue Otter's there. You know what I mean? And then they did it. So yeah, I think Respawn, it's very similar. Like, honestly, maybe expectations a little bit higher for them than they were for Blue Otter. But even then, it's still... I think just that never give up mentality, something I have seen from these players individually on Respawn. I really think that's something that they can take from this Blue Otter team because that they embodied that so much.
And hey, if things go well for Respawn, maybe they'll be playing against Blue Otter in 2025 spring.
That'd be hype.
We'll see how that ends up working out. Lawrence against Lawrence. No. There's a different guy up there.
Yeah. Lawrence against his replacement, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on to our next team, Tempest Gaming, a roster that when it was first announced, we were like, "Wow, what is this?" Kind of took us off guard, out of left field a little bit. This organization that had been around before but never really made too many waves, now coming back and putting together a roster full of NACL veterans and a role swap support. Any guesses on what this team could be?
Thinking. Mirage Alliance. Oh my goodness Grapes, the best part is I actually forgot what the comparison is. This was not a fake reaction.
Oh.
But yeah. But it's Mirage Alliance. It does make a lot of sense, right? Because Mirage Alliance, I think the main thing was they competed back in like 23 spring. And did they compete in 22 at all? I don't think they did. But 23 spring.
No.
And they were sort of like one of those like random orgs that no one really thinks much of. You know what I mean? Like maybe they put together a team that can make group stage. And that was sort of Tempest Gaming last time we saw them in the League of Legends space, Grapes. And now, all of a sudden, Tempest Gaming looking like contenders.
Yeah, both of the previous iterations of each of these rosters had Denethor on them. Tempest Gaming's first ever roster was in 2022 summer, had Denethor and Mobility and Frost Forest. At the end of the day, now we look at it like back now. Now that we look at it now, that Tempest Gaming roster from 22 is actually low-key kind of stacked, but never ended up fully forming into what the full potential could have been. On the other side, now you have Mirage Alliance. They had, I think, Denethor, Trickster, and a couple other players down there. They made it to top 8 in the second OQ, but because they didn't play in the first OQ in spring, failed to make the promotion tournament.
Wait, Mirage Alliance had Denethor?
Yeah, it was I don't remember the full team, but Denethor was definitely on it. It was Denethor and Trickster. Those were the two names that I remember.
I do not remember that team like at all.
Let me give you the full roster real quick.
I'm gonna be so on. Like because I'm remembering the team that had like fucking who's the support? Dave.
So, NACL 2023 spring. It was NACL qualifier 2023 spring. It was Denethor, Trickster, Nem9, Psycho, and Detro. That was the roster for
Detro was who I was thinking of. Dave. I was like, who's Dave?
Close enough, I guess.
Detro. Denethor, Trickster, Psycho, Nem9, Detro.
Yeah, so they made some waves. They made top 8,
okay.
but they weren't like anything super special.
Very 2022 Tempest Gaming core.
Exactly. That's the comparison now. And now they come in. They have 4 veterans and then 1 player that is looking to make it into tier 2. That being Sudsy and Hoarder as being those 2 kind of newer cats. Obviously, Hoarder or Sudsy has been around for a while at this point, but I think a lot of exciting veterans. There's a role swap happening with Minui going down to support. Dardoch went down to support to allow Chad to play jungle for him. We got to talk about this team a lot during Salty Runback in our opening season, Hawk, and it was always good things because they always were winning unless it was the finals of the first qualifier.
I will say the main difference between this Mirage Alliance team and the Tempest Gaming team, Mirage Alliance had some big personalities. Now, don't get me wrong, Aaron has enough personality for any team. But I feel like everybody else, like, usually pretty chill, kind of keeps to themselves on this Tempest Gaming team. Whereas, like, Mirage, they got like Dardoch, they got Chad, even like Sudsy and Alorum, like, can be talkers sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's like the one difference I'm seeing.
Now, the problem is that we have listed now 2 different teams in terms of comparisons that were the best respective teams in their splits. It was Mirage Alliance 23 summer, Wildcard 2021 summer. Unfortunately, Tempest Gaming and Nightmare both cannot be both the best teams in the OQ because they're competing against each other. We still I think Nightmare as the big favorite, but Tempest, I mean, it's a very similar build
Grapes,
as we were talking about.
It's a really easy comparison because everybody knows that qualifiers were easier in 23 than they were in 21.
True. Okay.
And I definitely just started a war with
this.
all the amateur players.
Is there anything that you want Tempest Gaming to look at from this roster in terms of what they could learn or what they could potentially take from them?
Yeah, if you promote it to the NACL, don't blow up your entire roster and rebuild it. That would be my advice. Let's keep going.
Yeah, let's talk about Apex Mission Impossible. Decoy, Low Jazz, Phi Mini, Baz, and
you
Focus.
Like that one?
I don't want to get in. I'm just here so I don't get fined. Phi Mini is the new big face on this team. We talked about it a little bit 2 episodes ago in our Season 2 finale, Hawk, because that was when the roster was first announced. But this is a team that finished top 8 in both of the OQs, and they add a new mid laner with a lot of upside, I should say. Finished a top 2 in Aegis this past fall. And let's see what team they remind us of.
Oh my God,
Ooh.
Graves is a team with Canadians. Are we surprised? Because for AMI, as much story as we can talk about with like their players themselves, a lot of good ones, by the way, like Pocus, Phi Mini in particular, I think have a lot of things to talk about on different sides of the coin, where Pocus, there's just literally so much history. Phi Mini, barely any at all. But at the end of the day, this is the Canadian org that has also been running with the same core of players for such a long time. They really make that a part of their brand, which I think is so fun. And so Mirage Alliance, nope, just Mirage 2021
Mirage.
spring. Yeah, just Mirage 2021 spring. A team with Canadians, man.
And I don't think this is Digmig, because Digmig, I think, was summer.
That was summer.
Of this
Yeah, it was
split.
just Mirage.
So this is just Mirage. The roster that they competed with being Dragoon, Hayami, DNA, Meech, and Trevor.
And Digmig, fewer Canadians, because Cyber was American.
Yes. And so we got our not only Canadians, but French Canadians on this team. Hayami and DNA. And then we got, Baz and Pocus, obviously. So that's the little comparison we drew together here. And also, I think it's fair to say, while we are excited about this Apex Mission Impossible team, not necessarily on the same level in terms of contender expectations, just like how Mirage was happy to be there and 21 Spring Proving Grounds didn't end up doing too much once they got there.
Yeah, and to even maybe add some spice, Apex, if you can learn anything from Mirage, it's to somehow, against all odds, make Proving Grounds. Because I will say, I think, expectation is that they are not a contender to qualify, but you never know. I mean, and especially when a team's been playing together this long, we've seen some really great stuff, I think, from Decoy specifically in 2024. That, who knows, maybe 2025 could be his year.
I'm personally really excited to watch Mini play.
There's a lot of hype. I mean, he's in the same position that Sam McKinn and Toasty were a year ago. Exact same position. So
we didn't get to see a ton of him in the OQs, but this ACL split turned a lot of heads. He was playing on a team with Dragonsteel, and now we'll see what he looks like when he's outside of that kind of ecosystem. So
yeah.
All that to say, best of luck to Apex Mission Impossible and our fellow, and hopefully they can learn from their fellow French Canadian friends. Our last team that we're going to be talking about here as we wrap up this episode is Chimaek, a team of a lot of veterans here, one new player that we're very excited about, a core of players, Cozy, City Witty, and Ariandel, that played together in the ACL season with AoE. And so let's figure out what our comparison is with this team.
At the end of the day, Grapes, it's a bunch of solid veterans and one, I'm going to say up-and-coming player. I feel like it's a little disrespectful to an Oribi at this point to say new. Masu on Team Pending, on the other hand, was new. And we've seen what he's been able to do since then. But on a team with Tapo, Kitsuo, Robbie Bob, and Kim Down, again, one player sort of returning from that roster. But then you look at the team itself, and it's like I said, it's just a bunch of solid veterans. Tapo was not as much of a veteran as Cozy, I think it's fair to say. But City, Kitsuo, both psychotic junglers. Ariandel, Robbie Bob, both, kind of I don't want to say wet blanket mid laners because that sounds very disrespectful, but they're going to do their job. You know what I mean?
Solid control mage players.
Yeah.
And then we got Masu, who, again, as you mentioned, Hawk, much more of a newer player than Nori B was. Nori B now has played in a couple of splits at this point. Masu, this was our first time ever hearing about this guy. And then Kim Down, we put Kim Down here just because it was he was on both teams. Technically, Chookies played, I think, for a good portion of this regular season, and then Kim Down came in for. But
even then, I feel like Kim Down and Chookies are similar players in my head. Is that crazy? Yeah. Collegiate supports that have done some damage at the tier 2, tier 3 level, but ultimately
Kim Down has more NACL experience than Chookies does at this point. But in terms of where they were, I guess it's not too far out. It's not too far out of the realm.
Yeah, they both had that collegiate background and everything. I think in general, what I like about this is, like I said, they're veterans, but Kitsuo, Robbie, and then you have City, Cozy, Kim Down even at this point for Chimaek, they have some of that tier 2, tier 3, success and experience. They have tasted what it means to be a really great player in NA, but I feel like none of them have really hit that upper echelon. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's one of the reasons I really see the similarity between these rosters, because we know all of these players are going to be good. The question is how good. Right. And
and in terms of those expectations coming in, you could say the same thing about players like Robbie Bob, Masu, obviously, and even Kim Down, where we did not see the top of their game in 22 summer. They continue to grow and improve going
in Robbie
forward.
Bob's defense, though, he only turns into Prime Faker during CLOL.
That is also true. Although BlackRock Esports in 24 Spring also a
For
pretty good Robbie
one
Bot that we saw.
tournament, yeah.
Yeah, he was good. He was good. What can I
Dude,
say?
Robbie, I swear, he just like wakes up some days and is gonna be like, I am the greatest mid laner in the world.
and we saw some great performances from Ariandel in the promotion tournament as well. So hopefully
Yes.
we could see them continue to kind of take those next steps. I'm excited to see what this mid jungle specifically can do. I know Ariandel is a lot more of a controlled player. I'm interested to see in a bigger setting outside of ACL now that we're in the OQ, like how him and City actually work together. Because this team went undefeated in the group stage of Aegis,
Yeah.
and then it's up to what this bottom lane looks like.
Yep.
This is such a strange bot lane to look at. Coming down from like Team Liquid, where he was on teams with players like Bradley and APA and all these guys.
Yeah. He's
Uh,
been laning with Arrow and Spawn for the last 2 years.
And now it's a new player, so now he's kind of taken on that veterancy, which is very interesting to think about. But I'm excited to watch this Chimaek team play. I think similarly to Team Pending, not expecting them to be necessarily favorites to promote. However, there's a lot of players, a lot of stories here that we are excited to follow throughout the season.
Absolutely. And much like Team Pending as well, I think the big question for them is going to be how can they rally around their carries, right? We expect that the supporting parts will be able to do a good job, but are they able to carry hard enough? And Nori B, specifically looking at him, man, I mean, I think this has to be his split. I'm going to put a little bit of that pressure on, you know?
I'm excited
We
for it.
saw
Let's see it.
some good stuff in 24, but also like I think it's fair to say we wanted a little bit more, and he can definitely do it with his Chimaek team. Because I think if the bottom lane shows up, I think this is a really scary team to go up against.
Definitely. I think they're right outside of that like big core of three that we talked about with Respawn and Nightmare and Tempest,
Yeah.
but could potentially
I think-
sneak up against like the two teams that aren't Nightmare, but
Right.
like I don't know how much they are
The
in
big
favor
question to
of
me,
getting to the top.
the big question to me is like how many other teams join the league, right? Because
Yeah.
I think I said this, Chimaek, I think they're like a top 4 team in 2024, say like summer, right? Like they're definitely a team I would expect to hit top 4. But are they in 2025 spring? And that is going to be super interesting to watch.
And we don't know yet because as we might
No
be
one's
implying,
fucking announcing rosters, bro.
that's all the rosters that have been announced so far. So, unfortunately, if you are making your roster announcement in the near future, you didn't make this specific activity. However, we will definitely be talking about you. We'd
Yeah.
love to get some more news, both from you and from whatever organization is going to be running the open qualifier that is supposedly happening in a couple of weeks. So,
Yeah.
I'm very excited. Going through these and like taking that trip down memory lane made me remember how much and how exciting like these splits each were, and how each of these teams like had their own unique journeys and things that we got to talk about. And I'm excited to see what
Yeah.
the future holds for these new teams in this new format.
And even more hype coming into 2025 because again, direct promotion, right? Like you just got to play well when it matters most, and you could find yourself in the spring split for NACL 2025, which I know would be a huge deal for all of these teams. So, I mean, that's all it takes. Just got to play well. If you're a team that, hasn't announced your roster or anything though, I don't know, when you announce it, hit us up at Salty Runback NA, at Hawkcast, at Speedy Grapes on Twitter. Who knows? If you ask nicely, maybe we could make a comparison for you after the fact and put it on social media.
Yeah, we'll do a little like cutaway between headlines
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let us know.
But that is going to do it for this episode as we prepare for the CLOL season to kick off, as well as the LTA North and South. Reminder, check right back here tomorrow for the first episode of CLOL Office Hours. I'll be breaking down all of the teams in each of the conferences and give you the best, most exciting matches to watch for the first round of the Swiss stage, as well as just all of the big storylines you're going to want to follow in the collegiate landscape. Make sure to follow our socials. Make sure to subscribe and like. Sub to our Patreon as well. I know that there's not a ton of exclusive content there yet, but there will be very, very soon.
Yeah, if you like what you see for CLOL Office Hours with Grapes tomorrow, consider helping us out. Patreon at Salty Runback NA, everything at Salty Runback NA now, because we are going full region. It's not just a podcast these days. Time to take over the world, Grapes. That could be our slogan. I feel like it sounds so ominous, but it's funny.
Yeah, and not the world, just North America.
just North
League of
America.
Legends,
Well,
I guess.
Grapes, we already have a slogan as well. You know what it is? If You think that Chimaek is nothing like 2022 Team Pending. If you think Nightmare is not going to live up to the legend of Wildcard Red, you can take what we said with a grain of salt. I've been Hawk. That's been Grapes. Have a great night, everybody.